Diolch yn fawr am y cyfle i gael dod yma i siarad heddiw. Mae'n braf gweld y neuadd mor llawn o gynrychiolwyr. Mae o'n braf iawn i weld ac yn dangos bod y diwydiant yma yn dal i fod yn gry ac yn obeithiol yma yng Nghymru. I'd like to congratulate MEW for achieving such a wonderful attendance here today. There's a calmness in this room, isn't there? Do you sense it? I know it's a church. I have figured that out. When Mr. Bill Cliff brought me here in his car this morning, I thought we were going on a tour of municipal allotments. And then I realized that it was a church or a chapel. And I thought, at long last, my father wanted me to be a preacher. And I wish he was here now to hear me preaching to the converted, which is always easier. I hope today, and I do hope to be brief, because there are some wonderful speakers here today, and I've thoroughly enjoyed what I've heard so far, and it's been inspiring, really, much of it, particularly the last session. And Mr. Drakeford this morning, who I thought was very good indeed. I want to give you a brief reminder of what Morlais is at the beginning, and then to provide you with an update of where we're at in our progressions, and also then to concentrate perhaps on one or two issues which we believe to be relevant. Many of them have been raised before and have been more eloquently expressed to you than what I would ever be able to do. But hopefully this will provide us with some context on what's going on in one part of the Arab Anglesey in North Wales. We are one of three tidal stream sites. There we are. Anglesey is green, clean, and serene, as you can see. And we don't ever want to change that. And I am utterly convinced that what we are doing is wholly in line with keeping it green, clean, and serene. Okay, one of three tidal streams designated by the Crown Estate. We have a 45-year lease, which means, as I've said before, I won't be here to see the end of it. It's 35 square kilometers of seabed area and has the ability or the capacity, the potential capacity to produce 240 megawatts of energy. We have already accepted offers for 193.5 megawatts of grid connectivity. One of the advantages we have in Anglesey is proximity to expandable grid. We have 8 developers who have with whom we've been working. One of them has left us. We have another one showing keen interest in joining us. These developers have signed up, if you like, to a sequential commitment system with us, where milestones are set for us to achieve in order for them to stay with us. Much has happened in the tidal stream business environment over the last 3-4 years, as we all know. And I am pleased to be able to say that these developers are still with us. They are still a community of interest that are keen to see Morlais succeed. We are now in consent. I'll come back to that process in a moment, and are seeking to consent an envelope for the range of technologies that we hope to be deploying or providing space for. We are also seeking finance to build this infrastructure which will connect the shoreside or the landing point to the point of connection at the local aluminium, or what used to be a local aluminium smelter and is no more, with 400 jobs ceased overnight, well-paid jobs in that area, and I'll come back to GVA in a minute as well. This is not the only grid option, there are others. We did a lot of work on this 2-3 years ago to see what the best option was. It's difficult. It was certainly difficult then to see a better option than to go for the full whack using a 132 kV cabling and being able to export that nearly 200 megawatts of power. We've revisited our optioneering on the grid arrangements recently and remain of the view that this is the one that provides the best cost-benefit ratio for us in what is a complex environment affected by timelines, time constraints, many, many constraints. But we are eager to present to the world, and I mean to the world, a plug-and-play site by 2022. That would be, in my view, in itself an attractant to bring technologies here that want to proceed up that CRL level, beyond the TRL level that Christoph showed earlier on. We have had one project financed, which is known in brief as Morlais A, to help us undertake consent work and all the agreements and the contracts that are required around progressing the project. And for this, we are grateful and will forever be grateful to the Nuclear Decommissioning Authority. Without their help, we would never have got going. We would never have bid for this lease were it not for the Nuclear Decommissioning Authority, their socio-economic fund. The local authority, the Energy Saving Trust, the developers themselves, all of the developers that you've seen earlier and I've mentioned previously, have made contributions to this first Morlais A project. But in particular, I would like to thank Welsh Government, who have been very, very good with us. And finally, to thank and acknowledge the incredible investment potential and opportunity that European regional development funds bring to us here in Wales. And I wouldn't be feeling guilty for asking for so much of it in two tranches if I did not believe that this is exactly what ERDF should be used for, which is producing and delivering new industries in our stressed economies in the west of Wales and in the valleys of Wales. So I would like to thank WEFO for the assistance that we've had in making mild promises we made to the Crown Estate in 2014. I have to admit that I did tell them we would get ERDF money in 2014, and I didn't know whether we actually would get ERDF money. But it wasn't misleading them, it was just, there was a lot to do to get there. But we wouldn't have got there without WEFO's assistance, so I thank you. Morlais A has allowed us to build a team. We have now, instead of just seeing the old faces with Morlais, there are new faces, more interesting than my own. We have Graham Morlais, now as a project manager, working full-time on this project. He's been in post for just short of 3 months. We also have Karen Jones, who has a great deal of international experience and is here today, so if you get the opportunity to meet Karen and Graham, please do so. And John Idris Jones, who is, like myself, local Anglesey, born and bred, well, bred, not born there. Nobody's born in Anglesey, you have to go to Bangor to be born. But bred on the island, and I have this dreadful gene in me, one of many dreadful genes that I have, by the way. But this one has kept me on Anglesey all of my life and will not allow me to go anywhere else. But I'm trying not to be parochial. Also, we have Gwenan, who has joined us, and John Jenkins. We are in the consent process. We procured Royal Haskoning to undertake our EIA work and so forth, and we continue to undertake burden mammal studies that we started 20 months ago now. And we are in scoping as we speak. It's probably the second time that we've spoken for reasons I'll scoped rather, for reasons I'll come back to in a minute. Landowners on the landing side, farmers have been 1 minute, good God. Right. Landowners have been very good with us, and there's a great deal of support in the Holyhead diaspora for tidal energy. You're absolutely right to whoever mentioned earlier about the public liking tidal energy. I've yet to hear a negative comment about it. Okay, I'm going to have to rush on here, so forgive me. There is one thing I want to mention. I know that Martin is going to speak further about it, an often forgotten issue in all of this. You know, we think that getting £30 million of capital funding in order to build infrastructure is a very big deal, and it is, but it pales into insignificance alongside the money that the developers have to raise in order to deploy their turbines in a hostile environment. I think I'm correct in saying that every megawatt deployed brings in about £5 million of inward investment. So if I can do the maths right, if it's 100 megawatts, it's £500 million of inward investment that is spent, much of it, in the diaspora of the tidal field. And we forget that at cost. Right, I'm going to go straight to the end now. I'm sorry that I'm going to have to. You're missing such a lot, but there we go. I do want to emphasize Morlais is also community-owned energy. Welsh Government has a target for a percentage of the new renewables to be community-owned. Menter Môn is the leaseholder and is a community-owned body. It's not for profit, no shareholders. If there are surpluses made on this project, they will go back directly into the economy. Whether there'll be surpluses will be determined by an array of variables that cannot be foreseen. I would like now, if I may, to give my introduction to Martin. I have now forgiven the Vikings for invading Anglesey in 948 AD. I have convinced myself that Martin's forefathers were one of the slaves that were taken from the island at that time. Diolch yn fawr i chi am wrando. Thank you.